Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it may be in your time zone. Welcome to the video. I had the amazing opportunity to interview UberNick, RealLifeSpartan, Fletch, and Taquin. Before we get into it, I want to be clear that part of this video was recorded prior to the Halo Infinite delay, and I believe one or two of the interviews was recorded after said knowledge being in our possession. So some of these questions and answers were said and thought through without the knowledge that Halo Infinite was going to be or is delayed. This video has taken a long time to create, part of that being that these four fine gentlemen are incredibly busy and they have their own schedules and their own time zones. So thank you, RealLifeSpartan, Nick, Fletch, and Taquin for your time, your energy, and thank you for listening. If you guys are enjoying, please like it up, share around, subscribe, helps me immensely. And without further ado, enjoy the video. First sentence / feeling you thought of right when the gameplay demo / trailer ended.
Putting me on the spot a little bit here. A craving for more.
First thing I thought was, And the reason for that was because it was a roller coaster of emotions. I liked what I saw from like gameplay perspective, but I was like, fidelity wise, curious. Yeah.
I was happy with what I saw, you know? I was like, the graphics are kind of questionable at times, but the game looks how I expected it to look. You know, I had a feeling it was going to be, you know, sort of a reboot, and the vibe I got was, yeah, it's kind of like a spiritual reboot of Halo, which is what they're going for. And I was like, I was just psyched. I was super happy about it, super excited. I processed that Sprint was in the game, which I don't personally care too much about, if I'm honest, but I know it's like a really hot topic for people. So I was wondering about that, like how that was going to appear in multiplayer. And yeah, I think I was just curious to kind of know more.
Soon as the gameplay ended, I was left with, first of all, a billion questions, but I was also like filled with like a lot of joy because I instantly, first raw reaction, I just saw so many things that made me excited for a Halo game, which I had not felt in many, many years. Like a massive open area, obviously the graphics got a little bit of flack, but initially I was like, whoa, this all looks kind of crazy, you know what I mean? And just like the overall just vibe that I got from everything, the grapple, seeing like equipment back, the assault rifle, it gave me such like immense feelings of excitement. It just made me excited for Halo again.
What do you think? Personally, 343 absolutely has to get right for this game to be quote-unquote successful at launch.
At launch, man, everything as broad as a response as that is, but I mean everything from a multiplayer point of view. Maybe not so much from a campaign point of view. I mean, campaign definitely is very important as well, and it has its crowd, but the multiplayer at launch has to fire on all cylinders, and stability is key. So I would say stability. I mean, it has to have a solid launch. There's a window of opportunity to bring in all of these new to the series fans that want to give it a go as well.
For this game to be successful from launch, they need to make sure that they absolutely nail what the game offers the players, because with Halo 5, they had a tremendous error, lapse of judgment, whatever you want to say, when it came to playlists and just what was available. So they need to make sure that all the fan favorite playlists are there. They need to make sure that Big Team Battle is back and better than ever. It can't just be regular old BTB. It needs to be like the absolute most polished, shiny version of Big Team Battle that we have ever seen. It also needs to be 100% feature complete. So I'm talking Forge, Theater, matchmaking just working without a hitch. Campaign needs to be absolutely just incredible. As long as they have every feature there day one, then I think they have a really solid base to build on for the next 10 years, as they say.
This game requires an excellent launch. Now, live service games don't necessarily need a perfect launch these days. Look at Rainbow Six Siege that game didn't really start off that well, but look at it now. It's like had a huge resurgence. Fans seem to loving it. It's as big as ever, but launch is still critical. Not as critical as it used to be, and then it just needs to have that continuous support to keep player retention up, because I think Halo 5 did have fairly good player retention because of the monthly the monthly content that was added, but at the same time that was content that should have been there from launch. So have a perfect launch, have regular content updates. I think that's just like key to its success. And I don't care whether people say it doesn't need advanced movement to be successful. It does need it to be successful. It doesn't matter, as long as it is a solid game. It has that constant updates and adding content. People are going to play it regardless.
Okay, I have very strong opinions about this one. 343 needs to ship the game completed. That's the biggest thing for it to do well, in my opinion. Halo 5 evolved and grew to be a really, really sick game with a lot of content, customs browser, the updated Forge over time, the different content releases it had, all the new maps, some not so great, but they were there. Lots of great stuff. And like, if Halo 5 had launched with everything that it has now, or even just like maybe 70% of it, but a completed game, I firmly believe it would have done way better. Firmly believe that. And so all Halo Infinite really needs to do at this point, mechanics wise, it looks like it's really gonna please classic and modern Halo fans based on the mechanics we've seen. Now they just need to release a game that's complete, and I think that's the biggest thing that they need to do. There's a universal truth about gaming that, in my opinion, will always endure, is that gameplay is paramount and graphics are secondary. As much as people may want to argue on either side of that, people started playing games because they were fun, not because they looked great. And that's always going to be something that, if they look great, awesome. But if it's not a fun game, no one's going to play it.
Knowing that the demo is old, however old it may be, my source says 7 months, 343 said a few weeks, it could be whatever it may be, it's old. We know the game will be vastly improved upon come release, hopefully. What concerned you the most after watching the demo? And if everything we see is not fixed, what is just one thing you hope is? Could be the blood splatters not appearing on the ground, the overall lighting, the brute's resting face in combat, etc.
The graphics, I know that's been a hot subject, and rightfully so in some regards. But I also understand that a lot of times in game development, that's one of the last things to be polished up. So the graphics, to me, it didn't concern me too terribly much. More so as the uncertainty with this open world approach. I think it's a very, very bold move, and I think if they can pull it off, it'll be a really cool experience for people to dive into campaign on Halo like they've never done before. But at the same time, it's a lot to try to accomplish and do so correctly. That's the one area where I'm a little concerned, but I believe in 343. I just got to see a little bit more to see how it'll pan out.
After I watched it, I immediately, obviously I noticed the clouds popping in and the grass textures popping in. That was my immediate worry. I was like, wow, this does not look polished to the extent that I thought it would be with only a couple months to go until release. So that was definitely an immediate red flag. But I also, the other part of my brain also thought, well, COVID happened. They obviously just weren't able to get this 100% polished in time. So I like to give the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, they wouldn't have shown this in the state it was unless they absolutely had to for whatever unknown reason. So hopefully development isn't in some kind of utter turmoil that we don't know about. But for release, they absolutely need to make sure that the lighting is sorted out. After watching that Digital Foundry video where they talk about the lighting and stuff, as long as they get the lighting nice and polished and clean and pretty looking, and lighting is key. They need to get that there day one, looking beautiful.
What concerned me the most was I guess this will probably be one and the same, was just the lack of detail on so many things as a result of lighting. But I also think their models and textures as well. It almost looked like a lot of the assets, let's say the Phantom or the Brute armor, it looked like they took a Halo Wars 2 game and then just made it first person without adapting the models for that. So this isn't a complaint about the art style. I love the art style. I thought the Halo Wars 2 art style was great, but it literally does look like they took the camera that was an RTS view and put it into first person with a couple things. Not everything, obviously. So the biggest thing I want fixed is the lighting system and the models of a lot of different enemies. Like the elites look great in my opinion in terms of their style, but they're not detailed enough. The brute armor is too monotone. Like I want the secondary color to be red, and I want the primary color to be like a super scratched steel, like dark steel armor color. Make it look like the Banished did. They're all just so like monotoned and cartoony looking, and I know that's, well, Halos always look cartoony. Like yeah, I get it, okay, but there was always shine to the armor. There was always like a really solid look to each of the enemies, and like they don't look terrible. I'm not saying they look terrible, but the brutes really could use some work. I think they could have like that distressed metal look across the board. So sorry, that was a bit of a convoluted answer, but basically what I would have fixed is the lighting in general to make the models pop more, make the textures look better, and then also for them to perhaps make the enemies and some things look less cartoony, which is a tall order, but yeah.
The popping did really concern me, but at the same time, I'm also concerned like the lack of story substance that we've been shown. Now, don't get me wrong, I think that games do really well when they keep secrets close to the chest until launch. I mean, look at Titanfall 2, and I didn't play that at launch. I played it like a year or two after, but when I played the game and I saw the mission where you switch between time and it warps, I never saw that advertised anywhere. And then when I saw it in person, I was like, what? Why was this not advertised? But you know what? I don't care, because this is like, my mind's blown right now. For example, I mean, I think that was also a good thing with Halo 5. From what I remember, scaling down the front of the Guardian, which is one of my highlights, even though it's brief and it probably could be more fleshed out, I still think that was a fantastic moment. Story-wise, I like that they're not giving a lot away, but I also hate that they're not giving a lot away, because I'm kind of like, as somebody who's not like a big multiplayer buff, as much as other guys are, I would like a little bit of something just to tease me. That's why I loved Hunt the Truth, because it was like, it really got me invested in the story. Like, what's going to happen to Chief? I would like to see more of that. I get why they're not. And I know they're just sort of playing at his heartstrings with a lot of the motifs musically and other elements like that. But, yeah.
All right, question 4. After seeing that 343 is focusing more on the sandbox, thankfully, instead of the abilities of the player, what is your biggest wish for multiplayer?
So first of all, the fact that they're focusing more on the sandbox is something that brings me so much joy. I absolutely, probably my biggest gripe with Halo 5, and I love Halo 5, but my biggest issue with it was the fact that every player was basically the sandbox themselves. It was like a self-contained Spartan suit of, equipment. So now that that's all out there for the player to go and explore and find and fight over is just alone going to make so many awesome gameplay moments that just weren't there with Halo 5. But for like equipment idea, after playing a lot of Halo 3, I actually have fallen back in love with the trip mine. Something about having a little pocket mine for me to use in any situation is absolutely hilarious, because people just don't expect you to throw an explosive pizza in their general direction at any given moment. So definitely some kind of mine. I love it. I absolutely love it. I don't think like a grav lift is needed because of the grapple hook. So yeah, some kind of mine is cool.
I think something. Oh man, I don't. The thing about the equipment system is that there's so many possibilities. You could literally ask for anything. I think incendiary grenades would be cool to come back from Halo 3, because they weren't ever really used in the multiplayer too much or at all. So that would be really cool. Maybe if you had an equipment that allowed you to thrust, maybe if that was a pickup, instead of an inherent ability, that would be neat. I haven't thought too much about it. It's a great question though, because the possibilities are pretty endless when it comes to equipment. You can always control if it's going to be on the map or not, or who's going to have it. If it's going to be like the main focus of main power weapon or pickup. If there's something that's insanely OP, you can like replace rockets with something, or with that or whatever. Yeah, but there's a lot of choice, and it's never going to be unbalanced because it's a power weapon or it's a power pickup. So yeah, sorry, I don't have a super exciting answer in terms of like a piece of equipment I would really invent. I don't know, maybe like a wall jump, something that allowed you to wall jump, or a thrust. I don't know. I hope I will say I hope the drop shield is back and it's not just the drop wall. I will say that.
Biggest wish for multiplayer is a direction towards the classic multiplayer experience. In my humble opinion, I will be happy with whatever they bring out because I'll put my faith in them that they're making it to please as many in the community as they can. But I would love to see multiplayer with reduced advanced movement abilities. I'll be curious to see from the campaign demo to multiplayer if we indeed still have sprints, clamber, slide, all that good stuff. If we do, from what I saw in the campaign demo, it's toned back. It's not as aggressive as it was in past Halos, so I think I'd be fine with it. But just balance, overall, just balance. And I think they have that under their belts and are going to get it with Infinite, with the announcement of the abilities like the grapple hook, for example, which I'm sure you've probably covered, being a pickup. So that's my biggest wish, man. Just balance with a taste of classic.
I love vehicles in Halo. I think vehicles are like, just make Halo. Like, even when I used to play a lot of Modern Warfare 2 back in the day, and I'm glad they didn't have vehicles because I thought that the on-foot combat and how it worked and their sort of sandbox was just right for how that worked, even though it was an unbalanced mess, but you still loved it. At the same time, Halo has a plethora of vehicles, and I love team-based vehicles. I love the Falcon. I love the elephant. If I could get an elephant in Halo Infinite, I would myself. At the same time, I also want the vehicles not to be obstructed by player movement. I think that's a big problem with Halo 5 that a lot of people have outlined in various videos in the community. And, the ability to sprint, charge, and all that jazz detracted from vehicles. And I never felt like I was powerful in a vehicle. I always felt incredibly vulnerable. So I think 343 are already making the right steps in terms of player mobility and abilities to be able to accommodate for that, and I think they've realised that. So vehicles, and maybe vehicles.
All right. If 343 had to delay / push back one crucial part of the game, what do you think would be the most quote-unquote okay / acceptable portion to delay?
What community are we just like throwing on the bus right now? This is such an upsetting question, but it's a good question because it's a very real possibility, What part of the game? Let's say we got campaign, we got multiplayer, we got Forge, custom games, maybe Firefight or something like that. I hate this question, but I don't. I think that they have a really ambitious PvE content set in mind. So if they had to not realize maybe some extra part of the game that they're bringing in favor of making sure the core modes are there, I think that would be the best option. But that is a bit of a cop-out answer. I don't know. That would be fine with me, I think, because I think the PvE community is going to have a lot to do with the kind of game that Halo Infinite is. So I guess that is true. Firefight's like a big part of a Halo game. So if they had to delay Firefight, I guess that would be my answer. Like, I think that would be probably the most logical one to delay.
Oh, dude, that is such a difficult question because none of it is okay to push back at this stage. I guess theater mode, if that counts as a big part. To me, theater mode would definitely count, but I think theater mode would be the most forgivable, I guess. Any other directly impacts, gameplay of the experience for the players, whereas theater mode sucks that we can't review our games and go back for funny moments, but if that's promised to be in there hopefully not long after launch, then I would be okay with that. I feel like I could get over it, but if Forge is not there day one, Big Team Battle isn't there day one, if anything else of that kind of caliber wasn't there, I and the entire community would just be not happy.
Oh man, I feel like this is a dagger to the heart for so many people. It's tough to pick one area. I would say if they had to delay one part of Halo, and this hasn't even been confirmed yet to my knowledge, but I would say some type of new multiplayer game type, like a Warzone type deal, or if there is a battle royale that's in the works, which it doesn't seem to be the case, but something along those lines, like a new game type, like Invasion or something like that. We'll have plenty to chew on at launch. Just give us the core multiplayer, give the Forgers that ability to start creating what they do, and feeder mode. I really would like to see feeder mode and campaign. That's tough, man. I feel like I gave you a very safe half response there, but if they're cooking something up behind the scenes, some kind of new Warzone 2.0, let's hold off on that. We'll survive for a few months without that. We need to have a robust multiplayer at launch, okay? But we don't need to have the Warzone at launch. We got plenty to keep us busy for a few months. I thought at first your question was actually going to be that, perhaps, like, would you be okay with them delaying Halo Infinite? And my response to that is yes. It would be unfortunate, but we gotta have a solid launch. They have one opportunity to get this right.
See, this is a tough one because campaign's massive for me, and it's massive for a lot of people. I'm a bit funny about the multiplayer crowd because, there'd be no Halo if there's no multiplayer. We carried the scene, but actually, multiplayer in the competitive scene is absolutely crucial for the longevity of the game. I'm not denying that, but if there's no campaign, there wouldn't be any Halo in the first place. People didn't. Yeah, even though people had a lot of fun with Halo Combat Evolved split screen, people were there for the campaign, the story. Forge, we've already had that delayed before, and actually, I would say that's miles for the better. And it gives people a lot more time to spend with the stock maps. And then, I'd be happy with the Forge being delayed. I think Forge is a crucial part of Halo now, but at the same time, I don't see it's a day one thing.
All right, if you worked for 343 and you had the say on this one decision, would you have released Halo Infinite on Xbox One and possibly scaled back the true potential of this game, but allowing more players to experience this game early on? Or would you have gone full force, cutting off any person who couldn't afford a new Xbox Series X/PC, but going beyond what anyone thought possible, since the Xbox One potentially wouldn't be holding it all back?
Oh man, the wording of this is gonna make me sound like an asshole if I cut it. Yeah, screw those players. I don't care about those Xbox One players. So my real honest answer is I wish they had forgot the Xbox One. I just gotta be honest about it. It's not me being like unfair or wanting to be unfair to the people that maybe can't afford a PC or a Series X. And I, on one hand, do love that the game is going to be accessible to so many people, but I feel like a big part of a new console generation is moving on and just allowing developers to take advantage of this new tech. And I feel like PlayStation is doing the right move where there's kind of, we had the PS4 generation, now we're moving fully on to PS5, whereas Xbox and Microsoft, for whatever reason, are holding on to the Xbox One. So I don't know how games are developed. Maybe it's very easy for them to scale how the game looks from the Xbox One all the way to max what a PC can do. Obviously PCs are all different and you're able to scale the games very differently. So maybe the game is built like that and it's, going to scale very, very well depending on what console you're on. Like a day one Xbox One is going to have its problems most likely, but a high grade PC will hopefully still look beautiful. So I don't know. I guess it would have been nice to see just what the game is capable of. I feel like I've almost changed my answer while talking here. I feel like I've talked myself into I'm actually okay with them being on Xbox One because I've thought about this whole scaling graphics. So you know what? I'm no longer an asshole. I'm kind of happy that it's via one Xbox One, as long as the game is built in a way where it's able to scale the graphics very, very well, depending on what device it's on. Final answer.
That's a really tough call, in my opinion, Nate God, because the Xbox One released in 2013. All right, so it's been 7 years. That's a pretty long haul. So I see both sides of the argument. I mean, you want Halo to be highly accessible. You want to get the population up, but there's a lot of uncertainties with if we release it on the Xbox One along with the Series X and the PC that are years and years and leaps and bounds farther more advanced. How do you make that work? We need to see if there will be crossplay. That'll be an interesting thing to look into. If there's going to be crossplay, I almost have to save my response until I see if there's going to be crossplay, because the reasoning behind that is if there is crossplay, I just want it to be a level playing field for everyone, and I do not feel like that'll be the case with Series X going up against Xbox One. So I just wonder what that will do to the Xbox One player base. Will that frustrate the Xbox One player base? Will there be an option for them to search just against other Xbox One players? It could go either way, really. I mean, it may motivate them to try to get a Series X or a PC, or it may just completely turn them away from the franchise. I don't know, man. I'm torn on that, because I don't have any problem with it releasing on Xbox One as long as it is not holding back the Series X and the PC from its performance standpoint. So it'll be interesting to see how they get all these moving pieces to come together. It's a lot to try to accomplish.
I would have left the Xbox One behind. And that decision is, or that opinion of mine is based on a lot of my experience with Destiny, because Destiny was supposed to be this ambitious game, like the likes of which we've never seen, and they were forced to develop it, I believe, by Activision for the legacy consoles, and that held it back so much. And seeing, I'd been following Destiny since like it was first even teased or announced. Like, I've been poring over every single bit of news coverage. I was obsessed with the idea of Destiny. That game was held back by legacy consoles so much, and it's hard to say leave behind everyone with an Xbox One. And logically, you probably can't do that. Sales-wise, you can't pitch that. You're like, we're going to sell way more. Everyone has an Xbox One at this point. Very few people are going to have the new console. The age of games being held back by consoles needs to end. And it's so frustrating to constantly see people and developers with visions that aren't realized because of a hardware limitation. And I think Halo Infinite's going to be great, and I think they developed the Slipspace engine to be able to realize their vision while staying with legacy consoles. But there's a part of me that thinks, you know what, maybe not. Maybe they wanted to go bigger with it, but they can't. So my answer would be to leave behind all the consoles, all the Xbox One consoles, and as that is, I am more interested in games pushing the limits of what we think is possible than catering to sales in the short term.
Balls to the Xbox One in this instance. No other instance, just in this instance. I believe that this game was originally built with the Xbox One S and the X in mind. But at the same time, I think Microsoft then said, actually, yeah, we are going to do the new console. So let's do it for the Series X as well. Let's have it as a launch title. And 343 are like, cool. I mean, you pay our wages, so let's do that. That was probably a good idea at the time. But looking at the fidelity of the game and how it was running, it was actually running on PC for those who don't know in the gameplay trailer, but it was specs comparable to the Series X, and it wasn't really good enough. So I think they should scrap the Xbox One. And the thing I talk about in my video, which you should go definitely watch more about, is that the thing is you have people testing on each of these platforms. People, I mean, I don't want to say people are resources, but people are the resources testing these things, doing the bug fixes and passing it on to the teams to sort out. So scrap the Xbox One. Focus your efforts on the Xbox Series S and the X, and it can really allow you to focus and have the best possible product on these. I don't think that Halo Infinite is going to look very good on the Xbox One based console at all, and that's because they try to scale up a vision. They try to do crazy things like the open area world style thing, and if it looks a bit ropey on the higher end, it's going to look like a dog's bottom on the other end. So, yeah.
All right, and bonus question. If you could go to 343, stand up on a platform and say something to their entire studio, or say something to one individual person, what would you say?
I would go up to Unishack and tell him to stop betraying me in multiplayer games of Halo 3. That's what I would do. That's my answer. Yep. I think everyone knows they're doing a good job, so Unishack needs to be told off.
If I could, get out there, I would just give the entire studio a big salute and just say props to keeping your heads up through all the highs and all the lows and keeping this franchise afloat. That'd be my take. They had a lot to take on inheriting this from Bungie. There's been some ups, there's been some downs, but at the end of the day, it's very evident, at least with the employees that I have been in touch with, that they are as passionate about the franchise as us, and just props to them for rolling through all the punches and keeping at it.
I would say 343. I love you so much. You're doing great, sweetie. I absolutely adore your vision for Halo Infinite, and I think it's the direction that Halo needs to go in order to grow with the gaming industry and as like a universe. So I'm loving what you guys are doing. Keep up the great work. Keep up getting through this whole pandemic situation. Hopefully the graphics will look a little bit better on launch. If you could do that, that'd be great. If not, I understand. You're doing great. I'm really looking forward to this game. That's pretty much what I'd say.
I think I'd just tell him what Halo means to me. Because, Halo means to me probably just as much as it means to them. I think it's hard for developers to see these kind of stories, and it's changed my life in so many ways that I couldn't articulate in a quick short sentence. And the impact they're having on people's lives and the passions, the friendships, and how much I'm looking forward to this game no matter what, because at the end of the day, they won't get to speak to people every single day and hear that. And I'd hope that'd be some sort of motivational boost for them. I would hope. It's not you should do this or you should do that. Just you do what you believe. Because I believe. And I think people might think I'm odd for thinking that, but at the same time, when you know some of the developers and you've been to the studio, like I have a few times, you see them as people, and I think people struggle to see developers as people sometimes. They just see it as 343, the corporate machine, just shitting out Halo games, and f those guys. But when you know them, you know how much they care, and you see the passion. And the past couple of times I could tell how excited they are to share more. I remember being sat on a table with one of the Forge guys in 2018, and I said, "Oh, how are you feeling about things? Feeling happy with how the project for Forge is looking so far?" He's like, "Yeah, it's looking great. I can't wait for fans to see it." I was like, "Can you tell me anything about it?" And he goes, "No, I can't. But just wait." And I'm like, "Oh, I hate you so much." But you see the passion. And passion doesn't always mean a perfect product. It never will. But as long as I can give him that feeling of belief and hope.
I chose you because you were special. I knew we would be perfect together. And I was right.